The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's session on enterprise mobility and security. We are just going to hold off for another minute or so, let a few more people join in, and then we'll kick off the session. So, talk to you in a minute. All right, I think we can get started. So, before we get started, a few housekeeping items. Everyone on the session is muted. You can ask questions within your GoToWebinar window, and either we'll try and answer them today or we'll take them up for later. The PowerPoint presentation, as well as the recording from today's session, is going to be made available on our website tomorrow. So, today's session is Enterprise Mobility and Security, more specifically Microsoft Enterprise and Mobility and Security offering. It's presented today by myself, Anil Shah. I'm the managing partner at CloudFronts, and our Azure tech lead, Leo Joseph. With that, I'm going to go to the next slide. Okay, 1 second. All right. So the agenda for today's session. First, we're going to talk about what is EMS, or Enterprise Mobility and Security, why it is important today. We'll briefly go over why EMS is important for GDPR, which is coming up very soon next year. We'll share some very useful links so you guys can go back and use those links to get more information. We'll go through a demo, and then we'll talk about what we are offering and how you can get started with your EMS setup. So, what is EMS, right? It is basically a comprehensive solution to allow organizations to manage their data. And when we say data, we talk about manage their users, their apps, their solutions, devices, etc. In a world where we continue to access data more and more in the cloud and through various devices, from mobile devices to our laptops to our desktops. And so how does it do that, right? So some of the ways it does that is through identity-driven security and access. So for example, if you try to access your company's email from an unregistered laptop, it'll figure out that you're not, it cannot identify you, and it won't let you access the company's data from that device. So driving security and access through identity management. Allowing users to still continue to use their own devices, whether it's the latest iPhone X or Samsung S8 or any other device. You can still bring your own device and yet enable EMS so that the company data is secure on those devices. Multi-factor authentication. So not only do you manage all their data across these different platforms, but you also enable multi-factor authentication. A simple example of that is, hey, every time you're going to access email through your Outlook app on your mobile device, it's going to ask you to either use your Touch ID or use your passcode. Information protection, which is another huge point. So if I have a company document and based on the policies I've set up in my EMS, if that document contains important information, if that document travels within the organization or even outside the organization, all of those rights and protections carry with that document. So, for example, a document having credit card information and it's confidential, and so it is part of the confidential group, that policy that you've created, and if you send it outside the organization, nobody else can open it. Things like that. Advanced threat analytics. So it continuously monitors your devices and applications to make sure that they are continued to be protected from outside threats. And then even protecting other business apps, so not just Microsoft apps, but if you have many other SaaS applications or any other application that your business uses, as many organizations would, even protecting all of that under the umbrella of EMS. So what are the key components, right? So this is slightly technical, but I thought we should cover it. So we'll talk about 5 key components of EMS, right? The number one is Azure Active Directory Premium, which holds all the identity for the users, devices, etc., and delivers everything from multi-factor authentication, access control based on device health, etc. Location. It does a lot of checks based on many different aspects to allow you access. Number two is your advanced threat analytics, so continuously detecting your devices, your applications for outside threats. Number three is advanced threat analytics, or Azure Information Protection, which is, as I explained, managing your company's data on documents and other things, and keeping that security available even when the document travels outside the organization. Number four is, again, protecting all the different apps from Microsoft Office 365, Dynamics, Power BI, to any other apps you might be using across your organization. So it's kind of holistic for that. And then number five is Microsoft Intune, which is where basically you're going to be allowing users to access different apps on their devices, whether it's their Windows PC, their iOS device, or their Android device, and hence ensuring that only users and devices that are allowed to use your applications are able to do so. So this kind of are the 5 things that cover this. In today's session, we're going to focus on points number 1, 3, and 5, really, which is basically identity management, and then Microsoft Intune, will show an example of how that's set up and how you protect your apps and data. And then information protection, we'll run through some examples, some scenarios on that and how you can protect that. So why it's important, right? So, you think about our data today is residing across devices, personal devices, laptops. Things get stolen. People leave the company. There could be attacks on our devices. Eventually, our data is what needs to be protected. So hence, EMS is very important today, whether you're a large organization or a small organization or a mid-sized organization. And some of the ways EMS protects our data, is allowing access only on authorized devices, multi-factor authentication, still allowing you to bring your own device, kind of use it for your personal stuff, WhatsApp or any other applications you might have, but on top of that, still having company apps protected by the EMS policies. So protecting company apps even on your own device. Restricting screen capture, copy paste on mobile devices, for example. So you would think, hey, if I have a document that I open on my mobile device, I could take a screen capture. Well, you can't. So for specific things that are part of the company applications and not your personal stuff. And then document rights across your organizations and even outside your organization boundaries. Another big reason to be compliant in today's day and age is the upcoming GDPR compliance laws, which take effect in Europe starting May 25th, which is not far away, which is basically the broad term for protecting user rights and data, which is General Data Protection Regulation. So if you're working with a European customer, so it doesn't mean that it only applies if you have a business in Europe, but if you are in India, in the United States, in Canada, Australia, but if you have customers in EU, you have to protect their data. So EMS kind of becomes a requirement and not really an option. And May is not that far away. Time flies, right? Because we are already at the end of 2017. The 4 key components of GDPR are enhanced privacy rights, increased duty for protecting data on behalf of the company that is managing customer data or having customer data. Mandatory data breach reporting. So if you had some data breach in your organization, if you're having EU customer data, you have to report that. We are all familiar with the last few days of breaches that have happened in organizations like Equifax, which manages millions and millions of user data, and they all of that just went into the hands of unscrupulous people, social security numbers to a ton of other information. So mandatory reporting, and then significant penalties for non-compliance. So that's kind of it brings all of this together, because we have seen EU slap very high costs to large tech companies when they found them to be non-compliant. And so these penalties are what should drive companies to ensure they are GDPR compliant. Whether they are in Europe or not, it's still mandatory. All right. Some useful links around GDPR. So again, you're going to have this presentation. So Microsoft has a wonderful document on how to become GDPR compliant with Microsoft Cloud. And then there is an even greater GDPR compliance white paper that walks through some of those 4 things we talked about: enhanced rights, duty for protecting data, mandatory data breach, and significant penalties, and how EMS is taking you on that journey for GDPR compliance. So we're not going to go too much into depth into GDPR itself, but you will have these resources, and we of course are here to help. And here are some additional links before we go into the demo itself. So from EMS pricing, free trial, resources, data sheet, and our own success story, right? So we eat our own dog food, and we're getting to a size where we thought, we need to protect our data. When people leave the company, when people join the company, everything has to be as per protocol. And this became more important as we've continued to work with larger organizations, including large banks and financial customers, who mandate us to have certain protocols in place, from data loss prevention to insurance policies to eventually having mobility and security set up in place. So this kind of became mandatory, and then EMS is what we deployed for ourselves. You can go look at that case study as well on our website. So all of this is going to be available to you. And with that, I am going to hand over to Leo to kick off the demo. So Leo, you should have the presenter rights. Leo is joining me from our remote office in Bangalore. I'm in Mumbai, and I know many of you are from different countries. All right, Leo, over to you. I'll let you know once I see your screen.
Yeah, thanks, Anil. Hi, this is Leo Joseph. I'll run you through the presentation on EMS 2 components. One is Intune and another is RMS. I would share the screen. Just give me a minute.
So we don't see your screen yet. I'll just let you know once I see it. If you guys have any questions, do ask us those in your questions panel, and we'll get back to you. All right, Leo, I can see your screen now. I can see a present PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah, right. What I would like to highlight here is there are 2 components which, as I said, one is Intune and another is RMS. Intune is a component which helps you protect, manage mobile devices. Now that it is not an old conventional way of managing IT, where the devices were very much within the premises, and you wouldn't really put your stress on securing the data which is outside the organization. Everything is intact within the organization. Now that people have come out with the mobile devices, and much of the data is moving on the mobile and shared across the internet, so there are every chances that the data can be leaked out of the organization by the user's mistake, or even with an intention of using the data to the competitors' environment. They share the data. This is where there is a complex situation where how we really secure our data. So the first component is Intune, which I would like to highlight. This is the application. What it does is it makes the end users mobile devices what they get in. It can be a company provided device or a user's mobile device which they want to use it for the company's uh, work environment. Like for instance, you use your Outlook, you use your Word or CRM on your mobile, and it is a productive way of doing reaching the users when they are in the remote location and they still wants to work. So we give the option. The the user first, when we try to, I would like to say, user gets his mobile device, how exactly it can be enrolled and it can be used with all the application published by the corporate environment. So when the user starts, when the user tries to configure his Outlook, the first mail what he gets would be something like this, where it would request the user to register the mobile device to the company portal, whereby the company can manage the applications and it can be secured. The first screen what a user gets when he configure the mobile will be the screen which I am highlighting now. He would click on get started now, and it will lead to the application called as company portal. This is the first application which gets installed, and this will enroll the device to the Intune portal. This is the way it will try to log in with the user ID provided by the company to the specific user, and the application gets installed on the mobile device. And these are the two key components which it enhances with the device. That is, one is device enrollment, and it checks the compliance of the device. For instance, the device needs to be password enabled, and we can set the device to encrypt, whereby even at rest data is secured, and it will configure the email ID. The next screen will be, it will give you the details on what exactly this application is going to do on the device, bit of privacy instructions, and it goes on to the enrollment. It installs a small client on the mobile devices of the user, and you give the trust to the device to get it enrolled. Once the device is enrolled,
So while Leo brings up his device, one important thing Leo mentioned here is, Leo, I know when we deployed it for CloudFronts, a lot of users had that questions for our IT team that, hey,
yeah,
if I'm enrolling my device, do you have control and visibility into my device and what I am doing? And the answer was no, IT doesn't have access to that. All IT has understanding of is the company application that you're using on your mobile device. So allowing you to operate your device for your own personal use, and not, we don't trespass into that.
yeah, right. That's a good point to highlight, whereby user is also comfortable enrolling to the Intune. Once the user gets enrolled, he has the company portal installed on his mobile device. When he tries to open the company portal, it gives you a list of application which is published by the company, by the corporate organization which enables the Intune. So it will list all the detail of application which is published, whereby the user doesn't need to go to the iStore and download individual application, search for it. I mean, that strain is not given to the user. He all he needs to do is just get into the company portal, and all the list of applications are listed here. The user can install the application just by as they use the other application installation method, app installation method on the phones. Once this is done, you have the Outlook, which all your mails configured, and yeah, mails configured. And what is the advantage of having Intune is there are a couple of very key features which enables us to secure the data on the mobile devices, which users get it to the corporate environment. For instance, one of the key feature is the application published on the company portal. Those are the list of application. The data from one application can be moving to the other application on the within the application published and not outside the application. For instance, if there is a file you share with some confidential data, you cannot copy that file onto the WhatsApp or any other personal data. Instead, if you want to do the reverse way of getting into a browser and copying the data onto the application, yes, you can do that. Just hold a minute. I'll try to log in and download the application.
So, what Leo is going through while he sets up his password, but Leo went through how you're gonna get access to the company published app. He was actually showing our own Intune portal and what apps we have published through our corporate network. Or most of them are through the Office 365 framework, but it could be other SaaS applications as well. And then what happens is, let's say if I decided to install some other app for my company use, but it's not an approved app yet. And so I can't use my corporate credentials to access that app. So there's no way for me to log into that app. But on the other hand, let's say if I install Facebook and I wanted to access Facebook using my personal details, personal email account, then I'm still doing that. So there's the line between corporate data protection and your personal stuff.
Yeah, and another thing, option is you can restrict these files. For instance, I have a file here which I want to restrict not to be printed or not to be stored in any other storage device other than OneDrive. So that OneDrive is also a business OneDrive whereby data is managed by the corporate, not a individual user's OneDrive, or he cannot store the data onto the cloud, iCloud.
So it's kind of an approach where not only you are going to allow to open those documents, but if you want to store them, you still have to store them within the approved company cloud drives, which in this case is OneDrive. If your iCloud was approved, you could save it there, but we don't want that. So it goes from not only from the user's email into his documentation, his or her documentation, but where it's stored and how it is accessed. In fact, as I understand, once we install this, let's say somebody sent me an email with some URL. There's a special browser that also gets installed on my device, wherein when I click on that URL within my company approved application, let's say my email Outlook application, it opens that particular link in that managed browser. Otherwise, it'll actually prompt me, say, hey, go and install this managed browser, which is basically, I think it's Edge on top of iOS or Android devices.
Yeah, one of the features, as I was earlier mentioning, if I try to copy this content, and get to another application, which is
Basically like a non-approved
not a
application,
managed,
right?
yeah, not a managed application by the corporate. It will not allow us to paste it. So this is one of the key feature, and you cannot print, you cannot share it to the drives which is not accepted by the company. These are the few features which gets enabled on the mobile device.
A lot of these features
And
that Leo is demoing are things that we had to set up for our own use, but there are several other features that eventually come out of discussions within your organization of what you want this to do, and then you set up this EMS suite to do those functions.
yeah, finally, there is one more key feature of Intune is we can wipe out the data selectively on the application which is published by the corporate, or you can wipe out the whole data on the device if it is enrolled and it is a company provided device. Once the device, if suppose the user loses the device and there are confidential data on the device which is lost, you want to selectively wipe it. Yeah, there is an option to selectively wipe all the corporate application and the data, or you can set it to the factory default that wipes out the whole data on the mobile. So that is a very important feature to secure the data which is on the floor. And with that, I would switch over to RMS,
So RMS is
which
your
is,
information protection. So go ahead, Leo.
yeah, RMS is information protection, which is, one moment, let me log in.
What are you logging into, Leo? What is this?
This is a Windows 10 device
Okay.
where,
So you're kind of logging in, and this is kind of like an end user that is going to.
yeah,
Okay, fair enough. So
yep,
Leo just finished walking us through some of the setups. So how EMS is set up. So the first time you bring your device, for example, it's a mobile device. It needs to be registered. You walk through the registration steps, then you install the Intune app, and then you can start installing all the company applications. And then once you install them, since your device is registered, you can use them. And then other things that follow, screen capture, copy and paste, opening links, opening documents, where you save them. All of those are kind of the policies that you set up within EMS or within Intune, and that's how you're protecting your mobile device. But also, if you were to use that, on your browser, it would actually figure out if your laptop or desktop is registered or not. So it'll go through that. I think Leo, the it's cloudfronts.com. Your username is incorrect.
yeah,
I think that's why
yeah, one moment.
your username was showing cloudfront.com.
Okay, here.
So Leo, right now we are seeing your mobile device.
Yeah, just I had stopped the presentation.
Okay. So now, the next step is for Leo to walk through to the information protection aspect. So he's going to walk through some examples of, hey, let's create a document. Let's add some sensitive information like credit card information, how you protect that. Let's set up some expiration on that. Let's set up some expiration on that document so that document doesn't expire, and then see and does expire in a few days, and see what happens. Or let's try to share a document with confidential information to somebody outside the organization, and then see what happens. Um, so
Yeah,
go ahead, Leo. Sorry.
yeah, right. So this is an enrolled system. company on the company portal. So I would like to show you that if I log in here, what is the experience, what I get.
So if anybody's curious while he's logging in, the screen that you saw on the left-hand side is from our last company offsite. So it's a bunch of our team members doing some team activities and going through some internal leadership sessions. Go ahead, Leo.
Okay. Yeah. So here, if I would create a document, and how exactly it works is we have published certain templates for different users within the organization, where if a user attach a particular template, it will have rights for a set of users to access that particular file. For instance, if it is a HR group, there are confidential data which needs to circulate within the HR group, which shouldn't be accessed by a user who is working in purchase or a sales guy who doesn't need access for certain kind of data which HR works on. So for instance, here I key in information of a credit card. So what is the behavior, you will come to know.
So while Leo is entering the credit card info, one of the things we had done was our HR exchanges some documents around, let's say, employee salaries, etc. So anything tagged by HR as an HR as part of the HR group was only visible to a few people who were part of that group. So it could be our accounts team, myself, a couple of other folks within the organization. So if it somehow went to anybody else, they still couldn't open it because they were not part of that group. So that was one of the things we did.
Yeah. I would save this document. When I save this document, it recommends me to attach a particular template. For the instance, in our case, what we have said is you give any kind of credit card information in a document, it will give you a confidential template as the propagated template. Now I say change now. You can see the behavior of this particular file. It adds a header and it even adds a footer and a watermark on this document. These are the few things which we would customize according to the system, user requirement of that particular organization, particular group wise. We can highlight these key features, and now that once the document is saved, I am trying to share it with a particular user. And even at this level, you can say that this mail needs to be confidential. Even it can be a manual activity or the application itself propagates a particular template. If I send this particular file to Anil and a personal ID of Leo itself, supposed to be managed and will have the permission restricted to mail. We can override this, but it will be set with certain permissions.
Actually important because before even you went out, it said, hey, there's special rights, and so are you sure you want to do this? So it's still asking you to proactively make a choice on something that is confidential.
Yeah, this is the way it can be done, and there is another option. For instance, there is a PDF. Now, this PDF you want to share it to certain users outside the organization. Even this can be set by customizing the template and send it to our users outside the organization. For instance, leo.cloud.com, if there is an organization called as cloud.com and I want to send it, I can send it, and I can restrict a particular time duration life of this file. For instance, I make it as 16 and apply this on a particular file, and I send it to the user, which is leo@cloud.com. The user will receive this file and he will be asked to register to RMS as a temporary user. Once he does it, he can access this file, and he can even if he suppose share this file to a user in same cloud.com, but it is Ravi@cloud.com, he will not be able to open this file. It will be restricted only to leo@cloud.com. In the same way, if a file is sent outside the network and you want to revoke it, yes, there is an option even to revoke a particular file.
That's actually that's actually pretty cool, because something has gone out of my hands, but because it has taken the information protection policies with it, I could still apply that to that file and revoke permissions on that file.
Yeah, these are the key features what it comes up with Intune and RMS. Intune will be securing the mobile, and RMS will be securing the file data at the file level.
And Leo, you're not only protecting data at kind of the MS Office products, which is Word,
Yeah, right.
Excel, etc., but you also went and showed us on a PDF of how you're protecting data on the PDF.
Yeah, not only PDF, it can be any file which is lesser than 250 MB. Yes, we can protect it and send it across.
Nice. Super.
Yeah, as such, when we are sharing it across the mail, I don't think so it will be a big file, so it does
Correct.
comply.
And again, that is also protected through your mail policies, which is usually in most companies. I mean, no, very few people are sending files of that nature anymore, but usually it's limited to maybe 20, 30, 40 megs, no greater than that.
So it covers them.
Yeah, true, fair enough.
Yep. With that, I would hand over to Anil.
All right. So Leo, thanks so much. So we went through EMS, two core aspects of EMS, which is Intune for app and device management, and then RMS for information protection. Let me know once you see my screen. So we're kind of at the end of this session. I'm just going to quickly go through what we are doing at CloudFronts. Leo, are you able to see my screen?
Yeah, right.
All right, super. So, okay. So what we are doing, right? So, for example, even when we did our own deployment, we actually spent a lot of time understanding what our needs are, because we didn't want to end up designing something too complex, but we didn't want to end up designing something that was not meeting our needs. So we took that approach with ourselves, but also with our customers. Of eventual goal is, hey, I want to protect my data, I want to be compliant, and I want to protect the business. So that's how we take this approach to EMS. It is not just a software that you install and you're done with it, like in maybe an antivirus or some other software. You understand your requirements and you set it up based on those requirements. So part of our approach is enterprise mobility and security. Along with it is your BCDR, which is business continuity and disaster recovery. Most of our customers actually do have infrastructure now in the cloud, on the Azure cloud, and some on on-prem. So we actually take care of that, whether it is setting up replication, disaster recovery in some other cloud, Azure cloud. So we'll discuss that as well, and then we'll follow that up with managed services, so our customer is protected even once they are live with their EMS and their BCDR plans. Typically, the way most customers are engaging with us is on a POC. So they'll start to do a small POC to a limited set of users or to some test users within their environment, so that they can test it. And it's usually led by the IT teams with of course the approval from management. But the whole idea there is that, hey, you have a 90-day free trial of EMS, so you could really run a solid POC for a couple of months, get some results, and then if you're already up and running on Office 365, you really don't, there's, except our deployment cost, you don't have to spend anything to get answers to whether this suits your needs or not. So with that, you can get connected with us if you do have requirements, info@cloudfronts.com, or you can call us, email us, follow us on LinkedIn, etc. That concludes our presentation for today. Again, the presentation deck as well as the webinar are going to be posted on our website under news and events. And look forward to more sessions from us. Follow us on LinkedIn and Twitter so that you can get more updates on this evolving technologies. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day.